From the shores of beautiful Lake Coeur d'Alene in the heart of North Idaho. Local, regional, national, and international guests discuss their topics on our forum. The North Idaho College Public Forum. With your host and moderator, political scientist, Tony Stewart.
Today's program is special for us in many ways. First of all, I'd like to announce to our viewers that this program will conclude the 28th year of the North Idaho College Public Forum. When we come to you next week, we'll be commencing the 29th year of this program. It is hard to believe that it's been that long. We've enjoyed so much the programs that we've had with you over the years, and look forward to next week to start a new year. During our 28th year, we saw a conclusion of a century, moving into a new century and a new millennium, and we're delighted the program could last long enough to experience that historical moment as many other activities have around the world. We thought it was very appropriate to end the 28th year by having the guests that we have, but before I introduce those, I have a special thank you, and that is to Mr. Doug Miles, who has been with us all this year. He has been replacing other staff on an interim basis. He is the production manager at KHQ6 NBC in Spokane, Washington. We not only are so grateful to Doug for this year, but also for his station owners and management that they've been so generous to allow him to come and be with us to tape our programs this year. Doug, we thank you from the bottom of our heart. I don't know what we'd have done this year without you. And with that, we also turn to a very special project tonight on the program, or many of you will be seeing this in a day's schedule. I welcome to the program a very long-standing friend, a very great friend, Mr. Norm Gissel. Mr. Gissel is an attorney in the state of Idaho. He is known for his human rights work, including serving as a board member and past president of the Kootenai County Task Force on Human Relations. He's also a board member of the Human Rights Education Foundation. He's here tonight to discuss with us a new project, another human rights effort on his part called the Jonathan Project, helping children out of poverty. We're also pleased, Norm, that you have brought with you tonight your grandson, for which the project is named, and Jonathan. We welcome you to the program, and we're glad you're here. Your grandfather is honoring you greatly with this project, and we'll be talking to you in a few minutes. Thank you both for coming. And as always, I'm pleased to have our two panelists, Janelle Burke, who is an attorney in the state of Idaho, and next to her is Steve Schenck, who is the Vice President of College Relations and Development with Idaho College. And through our tradition, we will continue with asking Janelle to commence the questioning.
Norm, it's just a pleasure to have you here and to have Jonathan here with you. Would you introduce us to Jonathan Moore, and then would you tell us a little bit about the Jonathan Project, how you happened to come upon that particular project?
I'd be happy to. Jonathan is our only grandson, Deanna and my only grandson, and he is Layla's boy, and Jonathan is 6 and is going to be 7 August the 21st.
He'll be 7 before the show airs.
Was that right? Yeah. Okay. And he is a first grader in Kirkland, Washington at the present time.
And how did you happen to decide upon the Jonathan Project? What is it?
I'll tell you briefly, and I'll tell you in the context of telling you how this came to mind, and this is why it got the name the Jonathan Project. I was contemplating, as grandfathers often do, how wonderful my grandson was, and we had been preparing him financially for the future, and we had done that by investing small amounts of money over time in a mutual fund. It grows when the stock market grows, and it was doing very well. I think it's returned about 17% a year, which is very much better than the Standard & Poor's would have done over the same period of time. And Jonathan has amassed roughly $18,000 to $20,000 in his young life. And then it occurred to me as I was thinking about that we had done this for Jonathan, but we hadn't done that for his mother, and actually, or her sister, either one of them. And why is that we had done? Why hadn't we done that for them when we'd done it for a grandchild? And it was from that the idea developed. And the idea was that the reason people don't invest routinely in small amounts is that culturally, many of us There's only about half of the United States is invested in the stock market. The other half is not. And it's that we have a cultural bias against investing in the stock market. And the reason why is because of the Depression. And we learned from our parents the fear of stock ownership. And we learned from our parents the fear of bank failures and things of that nature. And that slowly, as I've matured as a person, I've overcome those concerns and fears, and now see the market as a real opportunity. And I said to myself, if it works for our Jonathan so well, why can't it work for other people? And why, in specific ways, why couldn't it work for people who are at entry-level jobs or in service industry jobs or underemployed and making less than $18,000 a year? And I thought, well, it's probably because they don't have any inducements and to do that. So what we created, my wife and I, through suggestions from Tony and others, was to partner with the mothers and fathers of little children like Jonathan, who would be age 5 and under at that time, and that we would set aside $300 a year for one child. If the blood relatives of this little child put up another $300, and we'd take that $600, and we would invest that in a Dow Muir mutual fund or a Standard & Poor mutual fund. And then we would invest it. Each year we would replicate that as often as we could up until the age of 25. And at which time then we would turn that money over to the child. The child then would have, as a minimum, I would think, $30,000 in the bank in a mutual fund, generating away profits for himself or herself. And then at the age of 25, then we would take, which is a new investment feature in the world today, it's called Roth IRAs. And when you have a Roth IRA, you put in after-tax earnings, and you put that in there, then forever afterwards, all the money that's in this Roth IRA is tax-free, even when you take it out. And so my $300 invested in a child that's a day old lasts for 25 years and probably longer. And in that fashion, these little seeds of money would create great wealth over the period of the life of a child. And not only would that child escape forever the problems of underemployment and the problems of low employment, but so would his children or her children and that child's spouse. In America, what's happening, and I just want to keep talking about this, but in America, what's happening is that we view charitable giving as something that has to have results right away. And that everybody has Thanksgiving turkey that can't afford it. Everybody has a Christmas turkey that can't afford it. Everybody has coats if they're cold in the winter and things of that nature. And those are all valuable and important programs. But if we took part of that money, and to borrow a phrase from the astronomy world, if we raise the event horizon when something really important has to happen, if we raise that horizon to 20 and 25 years from now, we don't have to give coats for tots, and we don't have to have Christmas dinners, and we don't have to have Thanksgiving dinners. For those particular group of people that would be affected by this program, those financial problems are solved forever.
Norm, being in the fundraising business myself and working for a charity as I do, I can't resist asking you a few questions about the nuts and bolts of this. Do you put any restrictions on the money? Would the child's parents be able to take that money out at any time for any reason before age 25?
That's a good question, and that's been raised by all of the participants in the program at the present time. And it's designed so that, and I counsel people when they're thinking about entering their children, having their children inside this program. It says, this money is gone forever. Once you give this money to me, and I give the same amount into this program, it is for you, gone forever. And it is only for the benefit of the child. And the foundation, the Jonathan Foundation, which will control this money, has an option at age 18 to use this money or parts of this money for the child's education. But we would really like for that child to find a way to borrow against that money, low interest rate loans or some such thing, so that the full amount would then be vested at age 25. There's one exception to this, and it was raised by a person that I was talking to, and she says, well, what this type of an account will have a taxable consequence from time to time. And this is, it may, particularly as it grows, there might be the federal government taxes this type of money, its earnings, not its capital growth, but its earnings. And I said there would be an exception in a hardship case if if the child was making a lot of money and the family wasn't in a hardship case, then we could use some of those funds from this child's account to help pay for his taxes, but for no other purpose. And so that's the value of the secret to this idea is no secret at all, and very wealthy people have understood this for a long time, is that the money really has value if you never spend it, and it's earning. The Dow historically returns about 10 to 11% on an investment over time. So the longer you leave the money in, the greater and greater the benefit accumulates year by year by year. I had we're going to be using Matt Lyman of Solomon Smith Barney. He's a good friend of mine. He's an outstanding young man, and he's going to help and see if we can't do this in the very most inexpensive way possible. But he gave me a mutual fund program, not from the very best mutual fund, but a mutual fund that was of good quality and had intelligent investors and advisors. And in that particular fund, he went back from 25 years ago, and he brought it forward. And if you would have added in that mutual fund $600 year by year by year for 25 years, you would have $171,000 accumulated.
At age 25?
Yeah, and you're talking some serious money at that point in time. A young man at age 25 or a young woman at age 25 with $171,000 in the bank is 3 times wealthier than the average American at the moment of his retirement. So, I mean, and that's the time value of money. That is the ultimate revelation here and the ultimate idea. The best time to invest in America for anybody is at infancy. And the next best time is the day after they're born, and the next best time is their second day of life. And that's why I have geared this to very young children.
Tony, let me have one more question. I was just going to say, Jonathan, I think $18,000 to $20,000 is some pretty serious money. What do you think about having all that money at age 6?
Good.
Good. That's what I would have thought, too. What do you think of your grandfather's program?
I don't know.
The Jonathan program that we were just talking about, is that good, too?
Mm-hmm.
Good. You think you'd like to use any of that money to go to college, maybe like at North Idaho College or someplace close by, a very fine school like that?
Yeah.
I just love interviewing this.
Well, I tell you, I was relieved with his answer. I thought that you were taking some risk, Steve.
You're quite a ways out there, Steve.
And Steve, I'd say, since we don't edit this program, you were really gambling that when you mentioned which college you might go to. Thank you very much. Norm, you and I have talked about this, among other things. Norm Gissel is one of the people that I talk to 3 or 4 times a week. We have a lot of dialogues and philosophical ones. Norm, you have done a very good job explaining the concept behind the project. I'd like to take it a little bit deeper into the philosophical realm. I know you have cared for so many years about trying to address poverty. One of the things you've been really well known for is single parents, helping them in relation to policies and court cases. And you were even instrumental in getting some years ago a law changed in Idaho. And I just wanted the viewers to have that background. Based on that, I know you have such concern for children. And so tell us a little bit more about why you fell upon this plan with your concern about poverty. What I'm really getting at is the cycle that takes place where people don't get out of poverty, and you see this as an answer to that for at least some individuals in the country.
Right. In my litigation, you're talking about particularly the Reed case and subsequent cases that were based on the Reed case. What I found in those cases was that because of the way the government has to, in a democracy, it has to administer its programs. They administer those programs horizontally. And by that I mean, like in the food stamps, a classic example. In the food stamp program, it's a very good program. But when you're applying the food stamp program nationally, you have a basket of rules and regulations that each person has to go through to qualify for food stamps. And that's a very expensive, time-consuming process. And then you have a whole list of and group of people that are monitoring this food stamp program so that anybody makes a mistake, then this food stamp applicant either pops off to jail or is fined or somehow harassed. But it helps a little bit. It ameliorates poverty. It makes it easier to be poor, but it doesn't change the nature of poverty. And so those are horizontal programs. And I don't like those types of programs in a way, because nothing is ever effectively changed in society when you deal horizontally with millions of people in a democracy. What I've done is I said, why don't we just tip this whole idea on its end and make our concerns about poor and make our concerns about getting out of poverty, make that a vertical program. Why don't each one of us take responsibility for one child? Or in my case, 10, but I mean for the average person. That would be that person's responsibility, is to make sure that this little child, age 5, little Betty, is never going to have to see her children in the predicament that she finds herself. And if we can do that, we haven't affected poverty as a thing that occurs in society. What we have done is we have shrunken the pool of people who may become poor or are poor and will continue to be poor. And we have pulled this one child, Betty, out of this reservoir of potential poverty. And if enough of us did that, nationally, we could substantively and materially start chipping away at this potential pool of the future poor, and with all of the problems that arise by being poor and all the results and all the problems of society in dealing with the poor, we would start eliminating that and shrinking that.
And so you're also saying it has a compact, actually, I don't know what word I want to use, but it has an effect of cumulative effect, I would say, that if this child is not in poverty, and when they get to be 18, they can go to college and they get a good education, and then they go out and they have this real significant nest egg, then their children, as they grow up, will have more. But secondly, then their education can be provided for, and a more educated family can also look for generations at having a higher income and more economic stability.
Absolutely, and over time, I mean, it's a self. If you take care of your money will take care of you, and that's the fundamental concept. And if you really watch your money and teach frugality, which is another aspect of the program, and I don't want to have this program end without talking about that. Once I have invested $300 in the life of a child, the worst that can happen is that the child's going to have $300 plus the accumulated interest and appreciation for 25 years, say. But what has happened is that I have become a financial counselor to that family, not a lawyer, not an accountant, not a CPA, but a counselor and advisor. And the foundation would have as one of its fundamental issues is to teach the frugality and the ability to husband and save money. And that's all that stands between a child like Jonathan and wealth of considerable measure for the rest of his life, is that if he was to receive this money and behaved toward it without a sense of frugality. If he wastes the money, then the money's gone. If he doesn't waste the money, if he keeps it, holds it, respects it, treasures it like it treasures him, then his financial life, of course, will be assured. It doesn't say anything about his moral life, but it does say a lot about his financial life.
Janelle Bird.
My first question on this round is going to be for Jonathan. Jonathan, I understand that you've been on television before and that you had something very special to say about the millennium. Can you share with our viewers what you told people your wish was for the year 2000 and after? Can you repeat that?
You remember it was nobody shooting anybody?
Your wish for the millennium?
My wish for the new millennium is for all peoples to stop shooting. I will help by loving all people.
Yes, that's very, very good. That's a
wonderful
very
spirit.
special wish, very special wish, and a very good wish. Norm, my next question is for you, and it has to do with the whole family buying into this project. I particularly like that aspect of it because it's not just someone giving someone else something, but it's a whole family project then.
Yeah, this is not charity in the classic sense. What I'm doing is I'm partnering with the blood relatives of a little child for that child's financial benefit. And when you give somebody something, sometimes they just will thank you, but they'll just turn around and dislike you later on down the road. But if you partner with them in a successful project, which this certainly will be, then they'll like you forever. And that's better to be liked than not liked. But that is an important element of it, is that I just invite their whole family to participate in this process.
And it probably would have another side effect, and that is teaching the parents about the value of the saving program.
Right. And yeah, not only can you just describe it, but they can see it year by year as that money starts to appreciate.
I can't imagine that parents would not be very excited to see their child have that opportunity.
Yeah, I think that, yes, my experience so far is it's been it's an easy program to recruit into, and it's also easy to go in for the business world. And I might add that I have pledged to do this for 10 children, just to make sure that the model works. But I've also got volunteers for another 10, and that's without asking anybody. That's with people walking up and volunteering. I haven't asked for a single penny, but I've had people walk up and says, well, you can count me in on this. So I don't think on the supply side of this, from the business or the professional business person's point of view, this is not going to be hard to raise money for this.
Steve Sheen.
Norm, I'm sure your vision for this program is that it becomes much, much larger, that, as Tony says, it multiplies itself intergenerationally, but also across the country and maybe around the world. Your goal is to set this up in a way that not just 10 other people, but hundreds of other people can contribute to your fund.
Exactly. I wouldn't have done this had I thought that it would end with my 10 or with the 20. My goal is to make sure that everybody in America has the opportunity to at least look at this program and decide for him or herself whether this is something they would want to involve themselves with, both from the business side of it, from the Rotary Club side, but also from the side of the group that have the children. And that's where we want to go from this. And I've got my corporation, the Jonathan Foundation. It's been filed with the Secretary of State, and I'm preparing to apply for the 501c3 certification for that, so that the gift giving to the foundation would be subject to a tax break for the. And hopefully I may not be able to get a 501c3 certification, but even if I don't, it still is a valuable program that can go forward.
On this program, I have to interrupt. Our guests don't know something else we want to do. I'm going to invite onto stage the executive producer of the North Idaho College Public Forum, Mr. Andy Finney. He became the executive producer this past year, and he's doing a wonderful job helping us, and we're very grateful. So I'll turn it over now to Andy. I think they can get you on camera there. You are, Andy.
Linda, as executive producer of North Idaho College's Public Forum, I'd like to take this time to present to you a couple of things. For 10 years of dedicated service to the North Idaho College Public Forum, I'd like to present to you that trophy and this plaque. And if I may be allowed to read this, it says, Certificate of Appreciation awarded to Linda Sanchez in recognition for 10 years of dedicated service as floor director, production assistant, and camera operator to the North Idaho College Public Forum. Linda, thank you very much. Tony?
I think Linda is speechless right now. Is that right, Linda? She's always behind the scenes and she's very quiet, but Linda came to us 10 years ago, and she lives outside of Coeur d'Alene, and I would just like to add, and I know that Steve Shink and Janelle Burke joined me in congratulating Linda for being with us. Such incredible commitment, dedication. And there are times when we've done programs when it was snowy and stormy, and Linda comes and drives in. She never lets the weather stop her. She's like the male people. She says, no matter what the weather is, she's here. And Linda, we congratulate you, and And it's great that Andy, as our executive producer, would be the one to present this to you. But I, as the program producer and the host and moderator, want to thank you for all these years you've given. And I know you're going to come back and be with us again as we start a new year. In fact, I can tell our viewers that as we were going through a staff change, Linda called and said, "No, Tony, we're not quitting, are we?" a year ago. And so it's wonderful when you have staff that's that committed. And I want to say to the viewers that you see certain ones of us on camera all the time, but programs don't last without the people behind the scenes like Linda and like Andy and also like Doug Miles, and we have other crew and staff here that you don't see. Also, Andy, I'll take this opportunity to announce that we've hired a new production manager that's come to us from New York, and Jeff Crow. We welcome you on board, and he will be taking over to do the technical productions along with Andy Finney. And so, again, many congratulations. As we're ending this particular year, Norm, you can see we wanted to honor a number of people, and I want to say to you, congratulations on your Jonathan project. All the things we're doing today is an illustration of what human relationships are all about. And on this program, we very, very much like the idea that week by week we can have so many topics that are helpful. And I want to say something about Janelle Burke and also Steve Shink, and that is that they've been with me for years. Janelle's been here, I think it's now 25 years. Steve, I believe you're in about your 14th year. And I want to say to our viewers that they never get paid for doing this program. It's not part of their occupation job, but they are highly committed. And with them, I am able to continue to be the program producer and help the show stay on the air. And viewers, we're just so grateful to you. You've stayed with us year after year, and we want to thank public television stations in Washington, Idaho, who are with us and their commitment and dedication. Good luck, Norm. I hope this does go nationally. And Jonathan, thank you for being here. This is a really special honor, and someday you're really going to realize the significance of what your grandfather and grandmother are doing, and your statements already proving where you're at, and the great teaching you're having from your mother and your grandparents and all. And we wish all of you well.
Can you have just a second? I want you to receive a lot of phone calls. The phone call to call if anybody's interested in this is 208-664-6644.
Right, great.
And my wife will answer and we'll make an appointment.
On that note, we bring our program to conclusion. Ladies and gentlemen, join us again next week for our 29th year starting on the program. Until then, please have a good week. I am Tony Stewart.
North Idaho College Public Forum is the longest-running public television show of its type in North America and is seen in 7 states and 2 Canadian provinces. Each episode is pre-recorded live and is an educational community outreach from North Idaho College. Please join us again at this same time next week for another new edition of North Idaho College Public Forum on this public television station.